Welcome to Killer Content, where I cover some of the most heinous true crimes in history. In this episode, I'm going to cover the case of serial killer and cannibal Nikolai Dzhumagliev. He was convicted of 7 murders, but it is suspected that he killed well over 50 people. This story can only be described as the stuff of horror movies, so stay with me to hear more about this bizarre and gruesome case. So who was Nikolai Dzhumagliev? Well, he was born in Ungadesh, Kazakhstan in 1952 to a Kazakh father and a Belarusian mother. He was the third of 4 children and the only son. Not much is known about his childhood, but by all accounts it seemed to be completely normal. The only notable bad experience he had when he was a child was losing his front teeth in a fight. Rather than being fitted with regular white porcelain teeth, he was fitted with teeth made from white metal. This earned him the nickname, the Metal Fang. After completing the 9th grade, Nikolai entered a railway school, and upon graduating there in 1970 at the age of 18, Nikolai joined the Soviet Army. In 1973, after completing his military service, Nikolai applied to the Kazakh University and to be a chauffeur, but failed on either goal. So instead, he decided to travel Russia, where he tried a number of other professions. By all accounts, Nikolai was considered average for a man, but he was always well kept and approachable. He dressed well, he was always clean-shaven, and never had any issues picking up the ladies, which he loved to do so to quash his insatiable sexual appetite. His love for casual sex, however, is what led him to being diagnosed with 2 sexually transmitted diseases. This promiscuity was driven by an intense hatred for women, which no doubt was amplified by this diagnosis. In 1977, Nikolai returned home to Ungadesh, where he took on a job as a firefighter. And in 1979, Nikolai commits his very first murder. He very much planned this very first murder, hiding in the bushes, waiting for the perfect victim to cross his path. A woman fitting his liking did pass by, so he came out from hiding and began to follow her from behind. When she turned back to see who was following her, he grabbed her and pulled her to the side of the road, where he raped her, cut her throat, and drank the blood from the wound. Partway through this act, he was disturbed by a passing bus, so he hid quietly with the body until the coast was clear. He then cut up her body into pieces and placed them into his backpack to take home to consume later. He cooked the flesh and ate it over the next month. An investigation was launched into this terrible murder, but it was soon closed due to lack of evidence. This first murder really gave Nikolai a taste for blood, and in the following 6 months, he went on to commit 5 more murders. In the August of '79, Nikolai was arrested, but it was not for the murders. In a drunken state at work, he accidentally shot and killed one of his colleagues at the fire station. Sadly, the police did not connect Nikolai to the previous killings and charged him with manslaughter. However, after an evaluation with doctors, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and found not guilty on grounds of insanity and committed to a treatment center for only 1 year. Shortly after his release, Nikolai returned home to Ungadesh and began to kill again. He took another 3 victims, but this time it was a little different. Rather than keeping the meat of his victims for himself, he decided to share his prey with the knowing dinner guests. These dinners were always planned to be the day after a murder, and it is said watching his friends eat the human flesh aroused him. It was not until his 9th victim that Nikolai was finally caught. In the December of 1981, Nikolai decided to host one of his dinner parties, inviting some of his friends and their partners to come. Partway through the party, Nikolai called one of the guests into the next room for a private chat. Though a private chat was not what was on Nikolai's mind. He attacked and killed the guest and began to dismember him right there in the very next room. The other guests heard the commotion and went to see what was happening. On discovering the gruesome scene, they fled and called the police. When the police arrived, they discovered Nikolai still in the room, knelt next to the mutilated body, covered in blood. The police were so shocked at what they were seeing that Nikolai somehow managed to escape the scene. He fled into the woods, naked, covered in blood, and armed with an axe. A search party was sent out immediately, and the very next day, Nikolai was taken into custody. Nikolai was put on trial for the murders less than a year later in the December of 1980, where he was once again declared insane due to his previous diagnosis of schizophrenia and was detained in a special treatment center. Now, this is where you would think that this story would end, but it doesn't. In the August of 1989, Nikolai managed to escape custody while being transferred to a new treatment center by taking the car he was being transported in. Nikolai was declared a fugitive and managed to avoid capture for many years. It is said that he traveled around Russia, and it is suspected that he killed more people in Moscow and in Kazakhstan, but the exact number is unknown. For 2 of the years, he hid in the mountains and traded wild medicinal plants for food with local villagers. As the years went by, it was becoming harder and harder for Nikolai to remain undetected. Feeling close to being found, Nikolai tried to put investigators off the scent by getting a friend to take a handwritten note to Moscow to mail to investigators. The letter ended with the chilling words, "Now I will return soon. There are a lot of beautiful women here. No one will notice their loss." His strategy worked, as the press got hold of this information and panic set in within Moscow that the killer was there. The authorities made an effort to stop the panic, and a refutation was issued. In April of 1991, Nikolai was tired, and he decided that he no longer wanted to be on the run. So he hatched a plan to be caught for a minor offense while pretending to be someone else to get a more lenient sentence. His plan worked, and he got himself arrested for stealing sheep in Faranga. He was truthful to the authorities about the crime of theft, but he claimed to be Chinese and could not explain how he came to be in Russia. Knowing that this story just did not add up, the authorities sought help from Moscow, and Colonel Yuri Dobrygin was sent to Faranga to help. On his arrival, Yuri recognized Nikolai immediately, having worked on the case to look for him before, and the sheep thief was exposed for who he really was, a notorious serial killer and cannibal. The authorities then transferred Nikolai to a mental hospital, and from there to a more high-security mental institute in Aktas, where he remains to this day. Nikolai did petition to be sentenced to death, but he was denied. Doctors at the institute where Nikolai is held describe his behavior as orderly and calm. He willingly works in the department, he helps the staff, and they say they have no grounds to believe that he poses a danger to others, that he could quietly be released into society and be observed by a regular hospital. The question of Nikolai being discharged because of his good behavior is still being discussed, but many serial killer experts are strongly against the idea. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments below. So I do hope you enjoyed this case. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe for more killer content.